guys, it's Joel, and I wanted to go over some of the resources on our website. This is the first in that series, and I'm going to go over one of the most popular resources on our website, and that is the emotion recognition and emotion processing log. So if you're coming from an internal family systems orientation, a mindfulness orientation, a DBT orientation, or kind of a Gestalt therapy orientation, this exercise works really well with people who are feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, have a panic disorder, an obsessive disorder, a dissociative disorder, or have a trauma history. So in order to use this resource, the first thing that I usually do is set up a kind of model of emotion as it relates to our fight or flight system. And the way that I do that is I kind of explain that prefrontal cortex personality center of our brain is responsible for the kind of thinky-brained emotions that we have, like the positive emotions, happiness or curiosity. Those are very thought-based. Happiness is you saying like, well, I wanted to do a good job and then I did do a good job, so now I can be happy about this, I can be satisfied. That's a very thinky, thought-based emotion. It comes from the personality center, it comes from personality construct. Now, the negative emotions, the bad ones, what they are coming from a different part of your brain. It's coming from that amygdala and the sort of base body-brain area on your spine. You feel those emotions physically before you make sense of them with your cognition, with your thinking. And so the negative emotions, like I'm afraid, I'm sad, I'm angry, that's that fight or flight center firing up. And you feel that in your body before you make sense of it through your thinking. In order to manage those, you can't really just think about them or label them as rational or irrational. You have to start restoring a connection to your body, a connection to experiencing the deep emotions that are related to your fight or flight state firing up. So, probably the hardest of those fight or flight emotions to feel is sadness. If you want to visualize a ramp like this, sadness is kind of the hardest one to feel up here, right? Because in order to really sit with my sense of vulnerability that I was hurt, I have to have faith in my capacity to heal. I have to have sort of a flexibility in my thinking to know that I'm hurting right now, but I don't have to hurt forever. I have to be in touch with my own vulnerability enough and not threatened by that. I have to have a pretty intact psyche. If I don't have the ability to feel sad, if I don't have the ability to hurt, if that emotion's kind of blocked or turned off, you get this a lot in the South with men that are raised in a house where they say, like, don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about. Well, think of all the other people that are sad. People learn I can't feel that. What happens is that emotion, real men don't cry. That emotion slides down the ramp and it becomes anger. That's sort of the next one that's available to you when your sense of vulnerability is blocked. And so that's sort of like when you have somebody whose dog dies and they're punching holes in the wall. They're not actually angry. They're sad. But when I am not in touch with sadness, the next thing available to me is anger. At the very bottom of that ramp, if anger is blocked, if I'm not allowed to be assertive, because anger, when we're in touch with it, it's telling me, that I need to take my own sense of personal power and I need to use it to affect change, that my relationship to the world is bad, but I have the ability to stop it. There's a sense of agency associated with it. When you're in touch with anger, it's just an assertive energy. It's just assertiveness. It's my ability to enforce rules or boundaries. I can say, I'm in touch. I can say, it's not my job to do that. It's my job to do this. Don't tell my kids what to do. Knock before you come into my house. I don't like the way you're talking to me, in an assertive way. When you're not in touch with it, or you're not comfortable with it, that's kind of when it builds up and you may have an emotional outburst, or maybe there's a really big rule or boundary violation. When you're not allowed to be angry, and a lot of times you see this with like women in the South, just culturally, we have a kind of old, not a good, but the expectation from people who grew up here, 20, 30 years ago is, you're to be seen and not heard. You're not allowed. No one cares what you think. And again, these are bad messages. It's not good that women kind of got these messages passively or actively, but you do see that a lot, and men too sometimes. But no one cares what you think, be seen and not heard. You're not allowed to assert rules or boundaries. And so when you're not able to be in touch with anger, when you sort of absorb those messages as a kid, then the next thing available to you at the very bottom, the least adaptable state, is just fear, paralysis. So a ton of the time when you have somebody come in who's an anger management patient and they're blowing up all the time, I mean, what you need to do is get them comfortable with feeling sad, because they're not really angry. It's that they're out of touch with vulnerability. A lot of times when you have somebody come in who's just anxious all the time, is so worked up, or they have a panic disorder, or maybe they're dissociating a little bit because they're so anxious. If you can get them in touch with being angry, with being assertive, a lot of the time they don't like what's going on in their life. They just don't think that they have a right to feel that or say that or express it or ask for change. Once you're sort of able to explain that emotion model to a patient and make them comfortable with that emotion and say, yeah, doesn't that piss you off? Doesn't that make you angry? It sounds like this shouldn't be allowed, right? And then, oh, I'm allowed to think that. Oh my gosh. Slowly in therapy, you're able to take this person who's not really afraid. They're actually angry. Fear and paralysis from fear is the least adaptable emotional state, because you're saying, I don't have any power, I don't have any sense of agency, I hope the world doesn't hurt me, but I think it probably will, and I need to prepare. And so, I mean, that's kind of my model of how the fight or flight stuff is oversimplified maybe, but how the fight or flight, flavors of emotion work. And so with the emotion recognition log that we use a whole lot at Taproot, what it's doing is asking a patient to start to notice when they're feeling bad, because you're feeling one of these emotions. And so if one of those three. So, fried isn't an emotional state. Whacked out isn't an emotional state. Over it isn't one. I don't want to adult today. When you notice that you don't feel good, this is the first step on that emotion log. Stop, take a deep breath, and say, what am I feeling? And when you're able to feel that, recognize what it is. First step. Am I angry? Am I sad? Am I afraid? The second step is to feel it. Don't turn it off. Don't say, oh, I can't think that because they were nice to me one time, so now I can let them be mean to me. Whatever. All of the excuses that we make. Well, I don't have time. Well, it's not going to help me. No, that's what you're feeling, whether or not you're in touch with it. It's underneath your experience. You're feeling it, whether or not you're conscious of it. It's going to come out some way that you're not aware of. So stop, take a deep breath, and let yourself feel it without turning it off. That's step 2. Step 3 is make an I statement. Figure out why the emotion's there. Remember, the negative emotions are telling you that there is something wrong with your relationship to the world. They're describing a negative relationship with you in the world. I have to get out of here. Things are bigger than me. They're stronger than me. I'm afraid that something bad's going to happen. I don't like this. Someone's crushing on my rules or boundaries. I need to fight back. I'm sad that this has happened. I didn't want the world to be this way. It's telling you something. So what is the message? I'm angry that every morning I come in at 8 a.m. and my boss says, oh, just get in here, but that's the time I'm supposed to be here. I'm not late, but he still says that. Okay, now I've recognized that. I'm afraid that the last time that this person and I had an argument, it went really badly for me. I'm afraid that it's going to go bad again. That's what I'm feeling. Make an I statement. Why are you feeling that emotion? And when you're able to make that connection here in the present, it's not piling up all day. And so the goal of this exercise isn't to do a worksheet. There's a log on the back. You can write this stuff down if you want. I usually tell my patients to keep it in a notes app like Google Keep or Evernote or something, because everyone's always got their phone on them. And you can kind of see, are any of these emotions blocked off? Or any of these emotions things that you're having a hard time feeling? Or any of them not allowed? This log isn't just looking at what you're feeling, it's looking at what are you not feeling also. And so when you go home at the end of the day and you haven't done this at all, you've just been being like, you haven't been consciously aware of what you're feeling. You're just kind of reacting to everything. That's when you go home and all of a sudden you're washing dishes and you're just like, why the hell do I want to cry? I'm just washing dishes. There's nothing wrong. Well, there has been something wrong. There's been something wrong for a long time, but you're not listening to it. The goal of this isn't to do a worksheet, it's to slow down so that you can experience your life in the present moment. And as you do that, you can figure out what your environment is telling you and what you're feeling about it. Because you're feeling it whether or not you're in touch with it. And at the end of the day, when you're washing dishes, it's going to be too much to sort through. So when I go into work at 8 a.m. and my boss says, hey, just get in here, and I can realize, like, oh my gosh, my shoulders are hunched. I was dreading this interaction. My chest is tight and heavy. The muscles in my neck are tight. I'm pissed off that this is happening. All right, yeah, he doesn't have a right to talk to me like that. Now, I can't change the power dynamic between me and my boss. This doesn't mean that I tell him not to say that or something. I just have recognized that my body is responding to it that way, that my emotional experience was that, and why it is. And now I can sit down at my desk and do work. If I'm not doing this process, I don't notice that this is going on. And then I go into my next meeting with Stacy, and then I'm snippy, and I don't recognize that. And these things kind of snowball. So the emotional experiencing log, I hope it's helpful. You can use it as a patient. You can use it as a therapist with your patients. I've had a lot of luck with it. It's one of the resources that we use quite a bit that sort of synthesizes a whole lot of modalities that I like. If you want more resources, please check out the website for Taproot Therapy Collective. That is gettherapybirmingham.com. Again, gettherapybirmingham.com. Thank you all so much for listening, and if you have a question, let me know.